Today's question is, I meet people who meditate because it's fashionable without thinking about it deeply. Is that still valuable for them? And should I encourage them to go deeper or just let them be? So again, I meet people who meditate because it's fashionable without thinking deeply about it. Is that still valuable for them? And should I encourage them to go deeper or just let them be? So meditation has become very fashionable in the last, several decades, I would say. It's becoming more popular, and that's awesome. It's great that this inward experience is becoming so valued socially. But of course that means that the tendency of constant thought, constant mental activity that we're so adapted to starts to almost appropriate meditation. It sort of appropriates the experience of non-thinking, of being, into its own paradigm. And that's how meditation becomes a trend. This has always happened in spirituality. It's always happened in religion. That some deeper perspective, which has often been called a prophet, shares some message, some vision of a deeper inner reality. And that, over time, becomes a structure of thought, a structure of inward practice. And that in itself may point to something, but on top of all of that, maybe genuine intention to come inward, there's also endless trend, fantasy, delusion, ideology that develops around that inward path. And that's just because as you're looking to disengage from thought, but you're still very invested in thought, which includes your identity, because your identity is a group of thoughts. It's just a complex of interrelated thoughts and ideas that are tied to emotions that you have, that you relate to each other and you develop a sense of self out of. As you look to a more essential experience of yourself that isn't all of those thoughts, you're still absorbed in those thoughts. That's why you're looking to get out of them. And of course, you're going to start to develop thoughts around that inward path, around that experience of non-thought, around that experience of what you are that isn't thought. So the path out of thought is still going to include thinking, because that's still where you are. Not that thinking is the problem itself, but it's going to involve a lot of identification with thinking, a lot of believing that that thought is it. And that's where all of these religious ideologies come out of. It's where all of this religious fanaticism comes out of. Every religion and every spiritual practice is pointing to this experience of being that is not thinking. It's not an idea. It's a direct experience of an essential nature. And of course, as everybody's in the mind looking towards something that isn't the mind, they develop mental pictures of what that thing is. And then they start to mistake that mental picture for the actual experience of something that is not the mind, of the essential self that is not the mind. So trends are just a light version of the same thing. I think that a spiritual trend is on one end of the spectrum and religious fanaticism is on the other end of the spectrum of the same misidentification with thought. It's the same tendency to confuse the idea of a spiritual experience, of an experience of presence, with the actual thing, with the actual experience. So, should you encourage someone to think more deeply about that? No, because it doesn't matter what the thought is, it's just another thought. It can be a thought that has more quality to it because it's coming from a deeper and more genuine place, but it's still just another thought that a person could latch onto without finding its essence in themselves. What you can do is just look towards presence in yourself. Look toward the experience of awareness in yourself and bring that into a conversation with a person. Because after all, that's really all they're looking for. If they're engaging in spirituality from a confused place and it's only trendy and you don't feel, you can sense that there's not a lot of actual awareness coming up there, the only thing that they're missing is that actual awareness. They're not framing it badly, they're not understanding it badly mentally, they're just missing that direct experience. It doesn't really matter how well you frame meditation as an idea, whether you're doing it in the most trendy way possible, you're doing it in what seems to be a deeper way, but it's still conceptual. You're just missing the point in a different way. So if you can feel that awareness in yourself, bringing that into conversation, not even necessarily talking about it, but being present and bringing that presence into everything you do and into every conversation you have, is the most direct way to help other people start to become aware of that dimension in themselves. And sure, if people ask you how you meditate, you can talk about this dimension. I mean, you can do whatever you want. If you feel like you need to, bomb through a conversation and tell people that they're missing the point, try it. It hasn't worked for me. People don't seem to get the point that way. But if that's what you feel called to do, by all means, do that and see where that goes. You may get tired of it like I did, you may not, and maybe it will work for you in a way that it didn't work for me. But I think, after all, the most direct way to bring someone to the experience of presence is to be present and maybe talk about that in a space that people are open to. But even if they're not asking for that explicitly, just bringing that presence into what you do and how you relate to other people can give them an unconscious sense, just a little possibility of finding that in themselves and connecting to that in themselves.